What has happened to dating today? It's absolutely absurd. As a young person who's experienced it a little, it's not as easy as it seemed to be years ago. And today we're going to be breaking it all down on this week's episode of The Weekend Spectator. My name is Grace Reilly. I'm here with Paul Kengor. Paul, it's great to be with you and to be able to talk about a comparison piece that you just did for the American Spectator on this.
Great and gracious Grace, good to be with you. And yeah, and what inspired my piece, the dating game versus the mating game, I was searching for something in YouTube that had to deal with something a 1970s TV pro. I don't even remember what it was, but I mean, you know how it is, of course, with YouTube, right? They'll send you whatever will pop up, kind of related to it. And I saw down in the corner the dating game 1967 episode with Tom Selleck, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool, right? So I clicked it. And by the way, so have you ever seen the dating game? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I hadn't seen it, but I've seen clips now that you sent me this. So, and you all can see it on your screen now. I hadn't ever watched it, but it was familiar to me when I
Well,
reviewed
your
it.
mom and dad
I'm
have.
gonna watch it now. I liked
Yeah.
it.
Don Wolf, who's here in the studio with me, is like, come on, Paul. She's not old enough to have seen the dating game. But anybody like over the age of 50, right? It was really popular in the 1960s, 1970s. So you would have typically, it would be a girl, right? Sometimes it'd be a guy and then three girls, usually a girl. And she's there in a seat and there's like a wall dividing her from three guys, right? And so the audience can see the three guys. She has no idea what they look like. So they take what the gal looks like, out of the picture. And although they're usually like physically compatible, right? They tend to, pick attractive people. And so she would ask them questions and they would respond. And then after about 10 to 15 minutes of this, which is really not enough, right? But then she chooses one of them to have a date with. And in this particular episode, Tom Selleck was one of the guys, which was interesting. By the way, Tom Selleck lost to bachelor number 3, who was actually somebody who would have swam at Indiana University in Bloomington about the same time that our R.M. Material Jr. swam at IU Bloomington. So I'm watching this, and it just struck me at how clean cut everybody was, right? I mean, the guys they're wearing a jacket, they're wearing a tie, they're cleanly shaven. They have, the girl she's pretty, she's had this model of purity. I mean,
Boxy,
nobody.
beautiful.
Yeah, nobody's, no blue hair, no bolts through the nose, no facial tattoos, anything like that. And so that all struck me. And of course, but I remember the show. But then I read our Andrew Gandhi, who's one of our interns over the summer, Grove City College student. And he wrote a great piece on this new show called Love Island, which is, frankly, just the latest in this whole kind of debauched genre, Temptation Island, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, whatever, where for the viewing pleasure of our modern perverse audience, right? They'll put these guys and girls on an island together or wherever, and they hook them up, and
And they just the entire show are like, wearing basically nothing, like neat
right,
strings, the entire show, and it's this huge push towards just physical attraction and
yeah.
objectification. It's just, cultural decay at its finest and making dating nothing but hooking up and objectifying each other's bodies, and that's really what it's about. You don't have these nice, lighthearted questions behind a wall to maybe go on a sweet date with someone that, as you mentioned, is chaperoned.
Yeah,
Not like
yeah.
Love Island.
Yeah, in fact, that's in the dating game. They said, and you win a trip to, and the one, I don't think it was a Tom Selleck episode, but I think it was a trip to the Holy Land, Grace, of all things, right? And it said, you will see the sepulcher and all this stuff. And it said with chaperone. So there would be chaperones, right?
Love
So there,
Island contestants could use that.
they could use a whole bunch of chaperones. The problem thing is they don't want chaperones, right? That's not even part of it, and it plays into the whole thing. I mean, we're told all the time that the guys are told, treat women with dignity, with respect, don't look at them as sexual objects, and then they have shows like this where the whole point is to look at them as sexual objects, and the whole point of the girls who seem to like being viewed as sexual objects is to look at the guy as like a sexual object. The worst one, Temptation Island, which I'm proud to say I'd never watched an episode of this, but you don't have to.
Either.
Right, you just read about it, and it's enough. And also, if you watch TV, like football games or baseball games, they hit you with ads of this stuff, so you know what they're like. But Temptation Island, I believe, was the one where I think they sent a married couple away on an island or whatever, and they were tempted by other couples, right? And it's like, well, what are you doing? I mean,
I thought too, it's like basically they basically send all these people there wearing nothing, and it's a competition of who can not sleep together,
yeah,
make it out of it, which is like there's zero self-control because everything's about that apparently nowadays. So
and part of being chaste or committed to your spouse, not being unloyal to your spouse, is avoiding temptation, and you don't put yourself and your spouse in situations like that. Here, the whole concept was to thrust them into that situation. I mean, it's almost like if the devil himself was the scriptwriter or the concept creator for this. Is like, I got an idea. Let's put them on. Right? And then they make a TV show out of it. So then we in the culture are all supposed to sit back and be edified by this. In fact, we're turned into peeping toms in our living rooms, right? And especially the women, because I think most of these shows, I'd have to see the demographic data. I would imagine are watched more by women than men, unless it's guys tuning in for like soft porn. I mean, that might audience.
That's really the point here, and this goes beyond these modern dating shows into the rest of Hollywood and how they're producing movies. Unfortunately, because sex sells, they're basically putting this either soft or full-on porn in regular movies, TV shows, and just desensitizing our culture towards that. Where I can, like, an example is, I mean, imagine having children, you do obviously, but children going on Netflix and, half the things you click, you could probably find graphic nudity in. It's extremely common. So raising kids, I know, will be a challenge someday just because of the way that Hollywood, dating culture, everything has just completely perverted everything that used to be sacred. And in the 70s, dating shows an example where it was by no means like people were not like squares on it either. It was funny, people they were making jokes, charming.
Right.
It was not some uptight tight thing, but it was a normal and reasonable dating thing to get to know someone, at least having that as the centerpiece. But nowadays, it's not about that for people. They're not really looking for relationships. They're just looking for self-gratification, and that's what culture is encouraging, which is part of the reason less people are getting married, part of the reason people think they need to sleep with and live with their significant others before getting married to test them out, to see what's serving them the best internally.
I,
The definition of marriage given by God, because it was designed by God, is just completely irrelevant to most people, unfortunately, which also is a reason why the divorce rate is so high and common these days. It's just all this decay and everything that we're seeing on these shows and movies, everything like that is contributing to this.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better than what you just said, right? And there's no concept of courting, for example, right? Or getting to know the person. And to really get to know the person, you can't do that in a TV episode, right? I mean, you can't with whatever, even a TV series, Love Island or whatever. You can't have like one dinner together or one movie together, right? You get to know somebody through weeks and months. And Hollywood and liberalism, I mean, they're so hypocritical in this. They're also at the same time pushing the Me Too culture, right? And again, objectifying women. And at the same time, this is what it's like they're training. That's why young men are so confused, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, I'm not supposed to look at that girl with a sexual interest or whistle at her, but is it the whole purpose of what you're throwing at me to do that, right? Aren't you kind of training me for that? You mentioned Netflix. I'll be at home, we're watching, well, I mentioned before, watching a football game with my kids, and that's when these ads come on. And my wife will be walking by, and she'll suddenly see an ad for something like Love Island, and she'll yell at me, turn that off. What are you doing? I'm like, I got to pause before every commercial. Every commercial, I've got to have my hand on the clicker. And with a football game, NFL game, that's like every 5 minutes. And you got to freeze it and just be ready to fast forward through all the junk that your kids are going to see unavoidably.
Yeah. Such a sad place to be in a sad world. I will offer encouragement to any young people watching or anyone who has kids or grandkids. There are still good people and there are still people who actually date with intention in mind. I found a great one, so I'm doing great, dating an amazing guy, and it exists. People who will wait till marriage exists, people who will actually pursue exists, people who actually have good intentions in a relationship exists. It can be hard to find, but
It's
with
being
trust
done.
in the Lord and commitment to values, it's possible and so rewarding.
Yeah, you make a commitment to what is virtuous rather than to vice, right? And so you think of better ways to behave and apply your discipline that way, right? Focus your energy that way. And sadly, there's nothing in Hollywood, right, training people on courting. In fact, shows that show that, right? I'm thinking of, I don't want to give the example of the Duggars, right? They ended up having a bad situation, but some of the shows on TLC with large homeschooling families and everything, where they might be teaching courting among their kids, or when the boy comes over to ask the girl out on a date, he has to meet the parents, has to meet the parents' permission. The Hollywood left ridicules that. They make fun of it, right? But that's the alternative, and believe it or not, that's actually being done today. There are young people out there living those lives, and trying to live in a better way.
Yeah, there are, and what's I think the saddest thing is even beyond this, like a lot of romance shows even focus on bad themes. So for example, as many women do, I enjoy the typical Nicholas Sparks movie, the romantic movies like that. But the
Channel,
problem is, what was that?
the Hallmark Channel, correct? Is that
Hallmark Channel's good too, but the ones I'm referring to, they're very popular, but a lot of them glorify themes of cheating and this and adultery and stuff like that. So my point is, I think for a lot of young people, they don't even have in all of the movies or shows they watch, they don't even have any good examples. Obviously, the answer to all this is the example is Christ, everyone. That's the example for a good relationship and marriage and how God designed it. Read Genesis, that's the real example. But what makes me so sad is that kids growing up today, like they're living in this alternate reality where everything they see everywhere with their classmates if they're in school, or online through celebrities or TV, movies, it's all just like normalizing these problems in secular culture. So hopefully, uh, kids growing up are able to still kind of push forward values, and parents are able to protect their kids from thinking that it has to be the reality and that it's normal the way that Hollywood pushes all this stuff.
That's right, and it takes good parenting as well. You know, we're having this conversation right after the death of Dr. James Dobson of Focus on the Family,
Mhm.
and he was all about these themes. He was, you know, really a great man, and you know, he was pushing for things for chastity and before marriage, of course, during marriage, but yeah, the and he's been ridiculed. In fact, you probably go to his Wikipedia page, which I haven't yet. They probably trash him as a hate monger, anti-LGBTQ, and everything else. But yeah, people need to be more focused on marriage, family, rather than just go out there in the single hookup culture and you know, never getting married, which is unfortunately the direction that American culture is going today.
Yeah, and it doesn't provide fulfillment either. It
It
just
doesn't.
leads down
No.
dark paths, which is very clear by the results and rotten fruits that come from that. But with that, we thank you for joining this episode of the Weekend Spectator. It was a quick one, and we're happy to be back with you more regularly as summer comes to a close. But we hope that you will check out the articles that we've mentioned in this video, which you can see on your screen. Really good ones about Love Island and also the dating game versus mating game. A great one by Paul Kengor to check out. Please share this with your friends if you enjoyed it and give it a like. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Grazie, Grace. I'll see you next week.